Hello everyone, we're back and welcome to this wonderful lecture session from the horror programme at the University of the Underground. I'm Aggie Haynes, I'm the head of the horror programme, which is a critical exploration into illicit societal fears and human passion for horror. So we'll be investigating institutions and popular culture through lots of different things, like particularly through the lens of the horror genre in dramaturgy, film, costume making and more. So the University of the Underground is a free, pluralistic and transnational university that was founded in 2017, and it actually sort of started in the basements of nightlife venues. So we're a non-profit and registered charity. If you'd like to donate, please visit universityoftheunderground.org. On this website, you can also find loads of amazing other exciting programming, times and events. Also check out the Instagram where other talks and activities like this one are posted regularly. So Uma, over to you if you'd like to introduce yourself and get going. Thank you.
Okay, hi. Yeah, my name's Uma. I'm a kind of artist and writer and researcher in the northeast of England. My work and kind of research, the whole thing is a big kind of overlapping kind of bunch of things, but mostly work around kind of horror and play and how this affects kind of, or how this relates to kind of creative practice, like art stuff. Like the kind of things I make a lot of kind of video games, do kind of exhibitions, kind of write short stories and occasionally write academic articles, but which are generally about things like horror and feminist literature and video games. So yeah, that's my kind of very brief thing. We're gonna do a workshop today that's a kind of it's kind of a kind of pair of kind of technical tools for creative practice that I kind of developed as part of my PhD and been using for a few years. They're kind of like writing tools, but they're not necessarily only relevant, I think, to a practice that is about writing. They're about kind of organizing like ideas without having to nail down what those ideas are, and maybe get to a different place, a different orientation to those ideas, while keeping them kind of like nice and kind of unstable. So these kind of ideas are very much like informed by my interest in horror. They're the kind of two things that we're going to play around with is the idea of like art, and you can replace the word art with whatever you want as like a kind of creative generative practice. But yeah, like art as a thing that's kind of already in motion, that you didn't see how it began and you don't see how it ends. And art is something that's kind of like unstable and it doesn't resolve. And these are kind of two things that are, I think, they're not even common in horror. They're arguably like a kind of foundation of what horror is, what the emotion, the kind of affective experience of horror is like encountering something without it being able to resolve. That's that kind of like moment of trying to struggle to understand what is the thing that's in the darkness with you. So my beautiful opening slideshow, these three kind of like in media res kind of moments in horror, from The Fly, which opens with this like dialogue in the party without really explaining how these people got there, and then Saw, which is kind of was like a genre defying thing of like a slice of the middle of the narrative, and then Doom from 2016. Let's move to the next one. I always drop a few pictures of my own work in just so that I've got some kind of skin in the game, and we're not going to talk about my work, but it gives you a chance to decide like how serious to take me. I make kind of video games and things about video games quite a lot. These are some screenshots from what are now becoming quite old games for me. And as part of that, I also put in this like my little kind of like ongoing kind of manifesto of like where I am in relation to what I think art is. Again, I think this helps to kind of ground like who I am, so you kind of have a context in this 1 hour workshop, like to how serious to take it and where I'm coming from. So yeah, I'm a fan of trash. I like things that are immediately satisfying, trash culture, unstable trash construction, and freely available trash value. I think about the idea of artwork as a point in the middle there's loads of directions into and out of that point, and what we as viewers bring with us informs the trajectories we generate. This is maybe important for the audience, which is not to say that you have to imagine the audience, because that's basically impossible, but you leave space for an audience to be involved. More importantly, I think the point in the middle of virtual possibilities is a helpful way of thinking about the art we make. It removes the pressure of concepts like resolved and complete and even perfect. There's just different ratios of what's there and what there's space for. I think the balance has something to do with what's there being exciting enough that when we see it, we're invested in exploring the gaps. That's my trash art thesis. Again, cards on the table. Yeah, and here's some like contextual horror stuff to kind of prep our kind of workshop, this idea of things being in motion and things pointing to stuff off camera. So we've got still, I think that's probably from Evil Dead 2, that might be from Evil Dead 1, top left. Yeah, they're kind of, I really like those movies because of their like the kind of evil cam, like the camera is this like sentient creature that you never get to see because it's, you know, the back of the viewport, and how like horror deals with these things that are kind of off the frame. So in the middle as well, there's a still from the movie within the video within the movie, The Ring, the famous kind of like Talman figure, this guy who like points off frame, and there's bits and pieces from like Dark Souls and the Alien role-playing game, which I really like role-playing games and things like Dark Souls with their environmental storytelling, because again, they like point at things that are off the frame. They deal with gaps. They deal with like pointing to things without having to explicitly say what they are. So this is all like a kind of very quick kind of like preface to kind of give you an idea about what we're going to be doing. Like I said, we're going to be doing we're going to be looking at these two things, which is like art as something that's already in motion, and art as a bunch of things that we don't have to resolve. And we're going to do that by doing two kind of like mini kind of workshop exercises. The first one is going to be about kind of making a diagram. So it's kind of a bit like brainstorming, but it's a bit like a thing that you're maybe like familiar with. But the point is that it's just a way of kind of getting the things that we're excited about, the things that draw our attention, like where our desire is orientated at the moment, without having to justify or explain why these things are in our minds. And some of those things might not feel like they gel with one another, or they might contradict one another. And some of those things might not even really be solid enough to be things. They might just be very, very vague. But this is the kind of way of organizing them. And then we use this for the second part of the workshop, which is we're going to write a little bit of a story. So in the kind of prep stuff I sent out for this, we had like a bit of a short story that I really like by Caitlin Arkinen. That's a real great kind of in media res. So I'm going to use that phrase a couple of times. So in media res, if you don't know, it's mainly kind of in cinema. It's the idea of like things that arrive like in the middle of, immediately in the middle of things, in the middle of kind of events. So when you get like a movie or something where there's a cold open and stuff's already happening, and maybe there's the record scratch freeze frame, I bet you're wondering how I got here kind of moment where it kind of backtracks, or maybe there isn't, like in The Fly there isn't a backtrack kind of thing. But that idea of like you wake up and you're already in the action. When I've done this workshop before, I've used like Skyrim as like an example, because it's a thing like in role-playing games quite a lot, where you know this unspeaking protagonist, you wake up and you can't remember where you are, and that's a great place to start the story. Yeah, so we're going to write a bit of a story like that. And this is, again, not necessarily just if writing is your practice. It can be a way of organizing stuff. I use these techniques when I'm doing things that are not word-based. I can maybe like write the story in order to work out how the kind of the map of this world is going to work, or write the story to use to understand the kind of tone that I want in a drawing. And sometimes that flipping between different modes is like what's really useful. All right, that's my beginning thing, and I guess my brief bit of housekeeping is if you want to, I will have the chat open. I'm really bad, I've got two monitors, but I'm really bad at navigating Zoom. I'll try and find where the chat goes when I screen share. And if you want to ask me things in the chat, that's cool. If you don't want to talk, and if you need to turn your mic off, that's camera off, that's also cool. So right, I'm going to do the first part of the workshop, which is this idea of like making a diagram. And because I feel a little bit uncomfortable doing these Zoom workshops because I can't hear anyone, I'm going to ask some questions. And if you want to make me feel a bit less uncomfortable, you can talk to me a bit. So this diagram process is a way that I use for like kind of organizing and remembering things without having to nail down what they are. So my first question is like, do people have already their own kind of systems of like organizing, or like, you know, what this would be is like kind of disorganizing their own kind of ideas and like recalling them?
Yeah, hello. I don't know, I tend to make a lot of Google Docs and to fill a lot of like this kind of sheets. And I have always new ones which are half empty and half full. So I'm quite disorganized, and so I always have to go back and search, but it sort of works. So yeah, a lot of yeah, docs.
Do you have like a system in your thing, like how you start? Do you have like, do you write lists? Do you?
Yeah, I have. So I make like a lot of docs that I name differently, and then I try to put like links in it.
Are they organized, or are they always like variations on current ideas now, 2021 new, or are they actually structured?
I think at first they're quite confused, like they're quite like a mess, and then slowly I sort of wash the mess away. And yeah, I think I begin like that. But I gather a lot of things and in one sheet, and then I take the sheet, reread what I gathered, and then I sort of take out what still interests me and what not. Yeah. So this is a bit.
Anyone else? Time to admit whether you're organized or disorganized. Right. So yeah, what we're going to do is like a diagram. And I think in my kind of prep, I asked like, do you just have a think about some things that you're interested in at this moment? Because this is going to be like a brainstorm kind of thing. But the thing in the middle is you. The thing in the middle that binds everything together is you and your desire. It's like things that grab your attention, and they might be that they grab your attention because you've loved them for your entire life. There might be something you've just become infatuated with just now. There might be something that just absolutely revolts you, or something that is like bothering you, and you can't quite decide what this thing is yet. So when I do these, they all have like a range of things, from stuff that I've been like reading and studying for like most of my adult life, to things that are like a word that has become stuck in my head. And I'm gonna use the wonderful technology of the web MS Paint. Oh my God, I just bought a new motherboard, so everything's kind of thrown a little bit. I have to switch screens. So I'm going to kind of show like kind of how this diagram thing works. So I think what everyone needs to do is get your kind of A4 piece of paper, or whatever size, but kind of A4 is kind of quite a nice one. And we're going to start kind of like filling up our A4 piece of paper with these things that have our interest. Some of these things are going to be stuff you can maybe write, and some of these things are going to be things that maybe you draw, and some of these things become like literal, and some of them are going to be like whatever, stand in. So it's kind of like, it's a diagram. It's like, you know, you've got to draw a map for someone to show them how to get to the shops. You might use a mixture of words and like bad silhouette drawings of what the skyline looks like at this particular point, to kind of give people something to orientate with. How you draw stuff and how you write stuff isn't really important, other than just go with what's your first thought. And we're going to start kind of filling this page up with in no particular order. Other than the fact that you want to make it look beautiful. I mean, I'm not going to ask anyone to share it. it's a private document, but like you're going to have to look at it. So, you know, try and make it look like a way that you don't want to die when you look at it. And start kind of like filling this stuff in. So I always use like a live project when I do this workshop. So I'm doing this thing about, I'm working on this project about Godzillas and this like big like island. So I have like a bunch of like things that I'm kind of interested in that I kind of see as like part of the mood of that. So I've got a kind of like mountain shape that I've decided was going to be like the middle, and it's going to have like a kind of, it's a care home where I'm kind of working on. It's like a care home for like recovering Godzillas. So I'm going to write that because I don't really know how to draw it, and I'm just going to start filling this thing in. And so we've got about 15 minutes, and I would like you to all start doing that. I'm going to do mine again, skin in the game.
Are you drawing it now? Yeah,
sorry.
because I cannot see it. If you're drawing it now?
Yeah, is it not showing?
Yeah,
I don't see.
Oh, it's paused. Why is it paused? Sorry. There's no reason. Oh, that's the, okay. Back again. This is, sorry, this trouble, this new motherboard. So I'm going to have to draw it with the mouse. Wacom is attached to the other screen. So yeah, I'm going to start drawing. So this is just me kind of occupying myself. I want you to all start drawing. Fill in your kind of ideas, the things that interest you. Don't worry about how they relate. I'm going to fill the page. We've got about 15 minutes to do this. If you run out of things to do in that time, don't worry. I'm going to be helping as we go. A little kind of like advice with it is the bits you put in your diagram, you want them to be kind of specific. You want them to be like not really general, but like not maybe so specific that they only mean one thing. And that's what I mean by that is like if you put down walking, that's like a really, really broad kind of thing. It means the physical sensation. It means the kind of the act of doing something. It means the kind of the travel. But if you wrote about a kind of experience of walking, like when I used to walk to school, like that's like a more specific kind of thing. There's like room within that for like different ways that it can be applied while it still has enough of its own kind of character. So yeah, I use examples like the sensation of walking down an echoing hall.
Ludwika has just asked a question. Sorry.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah, I've just seen
that. But I mean, I kind of think if everyone's seen it in the chat, Ludwika's asking, should we do this about the research for this program? And I tend to think that that would be really helpful because I think that you've all sort of started to come up with ideas, and it would be really amazing to use Uma's technique as a way of sort of like thinking of other ways to organize those thoughts. So I think, yeah. But Uma also mentioned earlier that, you know, some of these might be new thoughts that are very fresh and you might not really.
Yeah, like totally do it about the thing. Like I said, I do it about a live project, but also you kind of don't edit. Like don't go, oh, it has to be you. The point of this is to not really think about where you're going to end up. But just literally, I'm interested in this thing, it goes down. That's it. It might be a thing where you're like, I can't possibly understand why that's going to work with my research. Doesn't matter, to put it down. There will be a way where it works. Okay.
Awesome, thank you.
It's like I feel like this is like an exorcism. This is like you are like regurgitating a bunch of like psychic stuff that is like in your mind. So you don't have to think about it anymore. Like you don't have to worry about this stuff anymore. You're putting it down on paper. It's gone. Yeah, fill the stuff in. Don't overthink it. Put it down. If you have to put down a squiggle and you're not sure what the squiggle means, don't worry about it. Right. I'm gonna give you some advice while you're like you've got about 10 more minutes on this. I'm going to give you some kind of things. You can tune me out or listen to me depending on what you need. Okay. 1, try and fill the page. If you haven't got anything to put in there, you have to just come up with something. Like, try and fill the page. Don't leave any gaps. You want it to be kind of dense enough. Another couple of suggestions, like if your diagram doesn't have a place, like it doesn't have a location listed in it, try and think of one. Like the first one that comes to mind, put it in there. It can be like a placeholder for a location. What location means is completely up to you, like how small a area of the world that is, or how large, it's completely up to you. But give it somewhere, like so it exists somewhere. If it doesn't have a person in it, then I strongly recommend you steal one from like the last TV show that you really enjoyed. They can be the stand-in protagonist in this. Try and define them in like 3 words or something like that. If you start getting like kind of stuck, like filling in, if you've got like space and you're not quite sure what to do, I've got some prompts. This is going to feel a little bit like therapy, but we're past that, I think. So ask yourself, what's the worst thing that could happen right now? Maybe that needs to go in the diagram. What's the most exciting about that, and put that in. Think about a time when you were alone. Find some space in the diagram to put that in. Think about a time when you were too curious for your own good. We are in the study of horror, after all. It's one of the foundational things you've got to get through. Think about something that someone said that you misheard. There's a caveat to that. You could think about what the consequences of that mishearing. Maybe that goes in the diagram somewhere as well. And then think about when you felt a great weight lifted. Maybe that's a thing that needs to go in the diagram. The feeling, the weight, the context. Think about something that made your heart race. I really think every diagram should have something that makes your heart race. I think that's what art should do. And also what art should do is you should think about what is the stupidest thing you ever saw, and that should go in there as well. Again, we've got to fill this page. Sorry, I stopped drawing on mine. I can't really do it with a mouse. We've got to fill this page. So if you've got gaps, just let your mind kind of like decide what goes in them. A drawing of a dog, a diagram for wiring a circuit, a recipe. It doesn't matter. You've got to kind of fill it in. It's kind of gets weirder and weirder as you start kind of having to fill in the tiny little grains. I think we've got like 2 minutes. Over Zoom, I can't tell if people are looking down because they're working or looking down because they're just avoiding my eye contact. So I'm just going to be positive and assume everyone's like doing great. But if you're stuck or anything, you can ask me either here or in the chat. If you've got any more space you're trying to fill in, you're just going to have to finesse it. Okay, first of all, I just want to quickly ask, like, because it's really hard to get a read for the room on Zoom. Like, how's everyone doing? Is this like a nightmare for anyone? Is this going okay?
I'm finding it really relaxing and
Good.
nice.
Okay, that is important.
Good.
I feel a bit mad here when I do this, like a mad scientist a bit. And I wanted to fill the page, so I did a lot of drawings, so I could, because it's bigger than words. So
that's part of the deal. Like, that is the thing. Like, you know, it starts off, it kind of makes sense. You're like, yeah, I'm going to write down what I'm very interested in, that I'm happy for people to know I'm interested in. And then like 10 minutes later, you're confessing things you never thought you'd say. And that's kind of part of the thing. It's like letting it all out. Okay. Right. Again, like I said at the beginning, these are private. You don't have to share these. That's part of the important thing. You should be able to kind of put stuff down without thinking about it being seen by anyone else. And that kind of extends to the next part of the workshop we're about to do now. We will have time at the end to share the kind of things that we've written, but it's completely up to you. And you could lie as well. You could like say something that, you know, you hadn't actually written. So we've got our diagrams, right? We've got our piles of like things that draw our attention. This is our like desire kind of spread out on a page. And we're going to use this to write a bit of a story. So like the story that I sent in the prep, this thing that appears like a horror story that kind of appears in the middle of stuff and points to those different ways that it could go, but doesn't really care about getting to them. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to write a story. And we're going to write this story that's like we're going to write the middle, and it's going to be messy. We don't need to introduce the characters, even if whether or not you have them, it's totally up to you. We don't have to introduce the place, even whether you have a place or not. We're just going to assume that all of that was sorted out in an earlier chapter for this story. It's not your problem, and anything that needs to be resolved, again, not your problem. That's someone else's job. The thing is, you're just going to write this kind of bit in the middle, and we're going to use the diagram as like a kind of map through that. So we're going to kind of look at the diagram, and whatever bit kind of jumps out at you more than anything else, like the first thing that catches your attention, like those things where you look at like a word search and it says your 2022 is going to be the first word that you see. It's going to be a bit like that. You can look at it, the first thing that pops out, that's where you begin, and you can just start writing a bit of a story that is from that point. And then if you get stuck, kind of see what's next to that point and move there. And the idea is kind of to kind of account for all of the stuff in your diagram, but like how you account for it, how closely, how truthfully, doesn't really matter. It's completely up to you. But we're going to write this bit of this kind of like fragment in the middle of things. You don't have to explain anything. Yeah, use the diagram, blah, blah, blah. And the only kind of thing that I've got that you kind of have to use is the first words. And the first words for the story are, you wake up, comma, and that's the beginning. You might delete that later on and change it, but you've got to start with it. So you wake up and then you kind of jump at the first thing that jumps out of your diagram, and that's going to be what happens when you wake up, and you're going to kind of go from there. Again, I'm going to be trying to help while we do this. I'm going to do my kind of like guided meditation kind of chat. But is that, first of all, is that clear what you've got to do? I read nods and absences nods, and I choose to read those absences nods as affirmative as well. So that's cool. Right, we're going to do this. We've got about 20 minutes. We might try and do it in like 15, seeing how it goes. We've got about 20 minutes. Remember, you don't have to share these if you don't want to, so no pressure at all on it. Let you get started, then I'm going to start my helping. So you just ignore me if you're all totally in the zone, then just ignore me. But yeah, I'm just going to recap it. So yeah, the diagram is like your guide, and we didn't have much time to fill it in, so some of it's going to be messy, and you've got to be kind of feel like you've got permission to not really be respectful of the you that made that diagram. That means, like, if you look at something and you know that you drew a tree, but actually looking at it now, it looks a bit more like a squid, then it can be a squid. You don't have to be like, well, what was I really going for? It can just be this thing that you break the rules of and bend and misunderstand as much as you like. It's fine. So let it be something that you kind of just use however you want. And yeah, like I said, like try and like account for everything in it, and try and like think about like the relationship of the things to each other, like their position on the page. Like some of these things you would have like quite consciously gone, yeah, that's important, put it right in the middle, make it big. But then some of the things later on are going to be like kind of messy and jammed in wherever they can, and maybe the words don't all fit on one line. And that might have been an accident, but there's probably something important about it. So allow that to be a thing that kind of informs how you work with it. If that word's all kind of broken and crumpled, maybe that implies something about its meaning. So when you interpret it, maybe that concept is broken and crumpled. And think about like where things are like in relation to one another. What's on the perimeter of the thing that you're thinking about right now as you write a story. If you get stuck, then try and look at what's next door, like what's next to the thing that you're looking at, and like what's the relationship between those two elements? What's the relationship between the thing you're working on and the thing that's next door? Are they like dialectically in opposition, or are they just continuation, like a run-on paragraph? Is one like the mistake, and then one was the actual proper way of doing it? To see like how they can be reorganized, and think about like what's on the opposite of your page, so that you work out if there's like a middle point on your page, what's directly opposite from where you're working now. What's the relationship between those two things? Again, are they like in opposition, or is one at the beginning and one at the end, or some other relationship? Maybe the whole page is meant to rotate. Figure it out. Think about like scale. You did that, you know, maybe you put something in big because you wanted to fill up space early on, but maybe also you put it in big because it was the most important thing. So allow yourself to kind of like reinterpret the kind of scale of the things that you put in there. Think about like, I guess like the order of things that you're putting down. The thing that you're doing now, maybe actually that should be the beginning. Like I'm assuming that most people are writing these things on a computer and not by hand. Maybe the thing now is actually the beginning, and you can kind of like start writing in the beginning again. Add that new section you've just arrived at is actually temporarily the start, or like a prelude. And you're like looking at things, let your kind of brain kind of squint a little bit and go like, maybe that's metaphor. Maybe that wasn't literally the thing. It's actually means something else. Maybe that's sarcastic. Maybe it's the exact opposite of what I wrote down. Maybe it's just a misunderstanding. Maybe this thing is actually from the point of view of one of my characters who doesn't know anything. Or maybe that's a typo, another kind of accident. So that it kind of all collapse. Maybe there's a doodle, a thing that looks like it's not important, but is actually very, very important. And see if you can kind of invest importance in it. You find that kind of little kind of spot of ink on your page and make that the most important thing about the narrative, whatever it represents or depicts. And obviously you can edit your diagram as you go. No one's going to check. You can redo it all if you want it. What I'm going to do over here is I've got my kind of disaster. Like my camera's mirrored. Let me stop sharing. Let me stop sharing. I've got this like tarot deck. It's not real. It's not proper tarot. It's from a role-playing game called Everway from like about 1992, where instead of dice you have these kind of tarot cards, and so all the decisions you make, rather than being like the hard kind of numerical decision of whether you got a double 1 or a double 6, it's really open, and everything is like, from like how you generate characters to the new worlds you find, are all like done with cards, like a tarot reading. So what I'm going to do, if anyone wants, for the next like 5 minutes or so, is if you want, I can do you a 3-card draw from this deck, and then this could maybe help with what you're writing. But you can also not do it if you don't want it. It's fine. I might just do some to begin with, so you know what you're getting in for. So the way I do this is like 3 cards are going to be past, present, future. Now, my screen's mirrored, so this is all back to front on my screen, but like hopefully it's the right way around on yours. So I will, first card, and these are all like double-sided, so depending on the orientation they have like a different interpretation. Okay. So the first one for this draw, this is for me, is summer, and it's like orientated towards energy. So this is the kind of the past of whatever the thing is that we're focusing on. So I guess it's, for me, it's like the center of like my story. It's like it's coming from like energy, which is kind of like a quite easy, quite broad way to interpret it, would be like the idea of like a big bang, like a kind of event that causes something, but also could be something else, like could be some other kind of like call to action, you know, the assassination of Franz Ferdinand or something like that, some kind of thing that was this energizing spark. Next, so this is the present. So the present card we've got here, it's the satyr, and it's indulgence. So if I'm looking at my story, this is like, it doesn't have like a moral decision on indulgence. It's just like some kind of, yeah, it's just indulgence. It's just sating, some kind of enjoyment in the moment, some kind of hedonistic thing going on right now. And maybe that will be clarified with the third card, which is going to be the future. So the future is overlooking the diamond fate, and it's orientated towards failing to see opportunity. So again, this is like this, there's like kind of fairly simple kind of read of this, that it's like beginning in a kind of explosive event that led to this kind of enjoyment and kind of sensorial kind of desire, id-driven wonderfulness, but this results in a future of like missing something. So it's a bit of a kind of well-worn kind of parable kind of thing. But I'm thinking about how this might apply to like what my story means. I'm not quite sure, but that's how my card reading goes. So if you want, give me a nod in the chat or in the voice comms, and I'll do you a draw. And you just have to have the thing that you're focusing on in mind. It helps to have like a kind of something you're going to orientate your reading towards. So I'll read this out and you'll know what it means, because you'll have the subject in your head. I'm going to do them anyway. What if no one asks? But...
Yes, please.
Okay. You got your subject in mind, focused, crystalline clarity right in the front of your vision.
Yes.
Okay. Your past card is The dragon, orientated towards cunning. Again, no moral thing in here. That could be good cunning or could be bad cunning, you know. That's up to you. But some kind of clever event is in the past. And your present is law, but orientated towards treachery. Again, that could be that the law itself is treacherous, or it could be the transgression of the law is treachery. It's pretty dark so far. Let's see where it goes. Your future is the hermit, orientated towards isolation. I mean, there's various things where this could go, but only you know, because you've got your kind of subjects in mind. But I mean, this does seem a little bit like, you know, quite a moralistic. You did something, you tried to be sneaky and you were really sneaky and you've been banished. But there's other ways. Only you know.
Thank you.
Anyone else want a reading? I might do a couple more myself otherwise.
I'll have one, please.
Okay. Remember, focus on your subject. What is the thing in your mind? Your context. Right. Okay, so your past card is fearing shadows, orientated towards unnecessary fear. But who decides? Who decides if that's unnecessary? I mean, it looks like quite a valid reason to be fearing shadows. Right. Your present card, where it is at the moment, is the hermit, but orientated towards wisdom. I don't know, maybe the shadows, maybe it's like reasonable to be scared of the shadows, but like no one else really recognizes. Maybe the kind of only one, the what was it? No, I've forgotten the name of the gift of prophecy Greek myth. Future is autumn, organized towards plenty. I mean, this could be, you know, a kind of wise kind of awareness of danger results in doing all right. Like, you know, you spotted quite early on that there was going to be a global pandemic and, you know, established your own kind of libertarian compound. Or it could be something else. Maybe the plenty is not a good thing. Only you know.
Thank you.
Nice work. All right. Anyone else want one? Sorry if you can hear my stomach rumbling. I missed dinner. Anyone else want one?
I'll have one.
Okay. Cool. Focus your mind. Envisage your subject of this reading. Draw the Dungeons and Dragons cards. Right. So the past card is the Phoenix Rebirth. Okay, nice for a kind of immediate res workshop. So it's already stuff happened before, but we don't worry about that. Everything begins with a do-over, not with the real beginning. Okay, so that's where it begins. That is the past. And where we are now is again fearing shadows, unnecessary fear. And the future card, where we're going next, is the Priestess, orientated towards understanding mysteries. So that mystery, again, there's no moral thing in there, but like kind of a realization of something that maybe didn't make sense has now been clarified, will be clarified in the future. Maybe what the unnecessariness is going to be explained. Maybe the subject of the shadows is going to be explained. Only you know. Do one more and then we'll move to next bit. I hope everyone's stories are fantastic.
Can I also have one?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Focus. Put that subject right at the front of your mind. The most annoying part of your diagram. put it right in the front. Okay, the past, where this is coming from, is satire, indulgence again. Okay. I hope that contextually makes sense to whatever you're focused on. And the present, where it is now, where it's arrived at, is the soldier orientated towards blind obedience, which is maybe how you're all feeling doing my workshop. Okay, and then where it is going next, the future of your subject, where it's orientated towards, is the creator, nurture. I can't help but think this is just my workshop, making you do something, and maybe later it'll be fun. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Swear. Right. Okay. I'm looking and I don't see many people writing, so I'm assuming that means we've kind of got to the end, and I don't want to, I know we said we kind of aim to be a bit late, like 10 minutes late, but I want to try and recapture some of that. So maybe it's time to put our stuff down, and if we want, we have a chat about, you can talk about like what you wrote, and we could share some stuff if you're feeling brave. I mean, this is going on YouTube, or we can just talk about like the process and what's been good, what's been bad. So first of all, does anyone feel like particularly brave enough to read a bit of their story and have it archived on the internet forever?
I can read mine.
Okay.
Okay, so it's very random, but it was incredibly useful. So thank you, and just for beginning. Okay, so it's, you wake up, the room is dark. Morning is still looking like night. You're standing by the window, the world is outside. You can't count how many days have passed since you have lost contact with it, since you last saw anything else than the room. Enrique was right. What a funny name. That's what they do when they leave. They give you a never-ending night. Do you feel something? They asked once. You try to feel the temperature. That's what you try to feel. How's the air smelling? But it only feels like drowning, like you're stuck in a black hole with no space-time exit. Where do you come from? You don't know where you come from. You wonder if you would look dead or alive to someone entering the room now. You know the price they paid for you. They want you alive. They'll come back and night will end. They will clean you up. You look prettier than ever. It is great that you don't care about loneliness and extinction. Chicas did. That's why it died.
That's so good. Thank you. Oh, yeah. Woo! Oh my God, I would never have been so brave, and it was so good. It was totally good. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. That was really great. And you had a good, you enjoyed the process. It was useful.
Yeah, very much. I mean, the moment I was just like, okay, I'm just gonna look at the diagram and write down what the diagram is giving me. I just had to write it down. So it was like very funny. I wouldn't think that it could happen like that.
That's great. I mean, that's always what I kind of hope for with this stuff is it, you know, the reason I do the tarot card thing while we're doing it is because it's basically the same thing, but we've done it to ourselves with the diagram. We've pulled out a bunch of exciting things and we put them in an orientation, and then we kind of find links and we make it into a thing, but we've done it a tarot card deck specifically to you in the form of the diagram. Thank you so much. That was absolutely wonderful. And I'm really glad it was actually useful.
Thanks to you.
Okay. Does anyone else want to read their thing? I mean, bar has been set quite high.
I can try.
Yeah?
Yeah. So you wake up coma and you hear that mankind landed on the moon. How is this possible? Is the moon not a hologram after all, or a balloon? And the stars, are they not holes in an enormous fabric? Talking about fabric, the American flag that has been put on the moon is taking the wind. Is there wind on the moon? I always thought there was no wind. The foot imprints are quite surreal. They look like made by aliens, but they are but they say it's man. They even look like Bigfoot. One small step for Bigfoot, one giant leap for what? History? I was commenting during a historical moment, or did we also landed on other satellites or planets? Maybe it was not the first time. Maybe I missed everything.
Oh my God, another banger. Thank you. That was brilliant. That was really brilliant. I don't understand how people make such like coherent stories. No, that's really great. How did you find the process?
Yeah, it's the same. I made this super weird plan, and then I tried to put everything in the text, and it really helped me usually I'm really bad with writing. I feel stressed all the time when I have to write, and this made it way more easier. Yeah.
I really got it. I mean, that's the main thing. I think my big thing is that art is meant to be, it has to be fun, because it's like so threatening. Like when you do something, like you're risking kind of like failure at every moment, and like it's very personal. So it has to be a thing that's enjoyable. And these are things that, like I said, they don't have to be output. This could be just a way of organizing your thoughts, and this becomes, you know, later on you read that story again and it explains the film you're going to make, or the object you're going to design, or something like that. But it's kind of those feelings have been kind of put down somewhere now, drawn out. Does anyone else like to share?
Yeah, I'll share. I just want to say as well, thank you for the process, because for me as an artist, I do a lot of like brainstorming, and I've never really thought about taking literally those words that I've brainstormed and then almost like incorporating them or forcing them into like what I'm trying to write. So that really helped for me. I'll read a little bit of mine. It's a bit darker, but okay. You wake up and she has him tied to the bed. I must have been out for hours. He hit me pretty hard with that closed fist. He looked like a fleshy pig tied down, helpless to the surgical table, the fat in his skin pushing against the rope. She has nothing behind her eyes as she grabs the sharp shearing shears and rubs them on his fat, hairy belly. She slowly inserts the knife into Daddy, who squeals like a swine, and now she says, "Do I make you happy, Daddy?" That's as far as I got.
Fantastic. That's so good. There we go. That's the mood. There we go. Horror studies. How did you find, and you found the process, like you found the process good? Is like diagrams and like brainstorming a thing that you are familiar with, and is this a different way of approaching them from what you're familiar with?
Yeah, so for me, I normally do like brainstorming and then work on the visuals, because I'm not much of a writer. But I found like through this process of having that second step of using the words that I've created and then putting them in context, and then I would like finish this, and then I would like to go to the illustrating process. So this is like another sort of chapter, I guess, in between what I normally do, which is quite exciting. So yeah, thank you. That is helpful.
That's really good. I'm really glad to hear it. If anyone else like to share?
Yeah, I can try to read. Okay. You wake up and tick, 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 a lot of clutter. It is wet around you, humid and warm. There are tiny little birds. Birds, no, I'm wrong. You don't know really what they are. Maybe molecules. It is shaking around you. Mobile objects, shiny surfaces. You walk, and by walking, the surroundings unfold. A big factory, a huge field, people working, push, stop, walk, push, stop, walk. They repeat actions and mumble things you do not understand yet. You don't know what you are. You only feel very sweaty and sticky. You walk, and by walking like a vacuum cleaner, you stack objects around you. You're many now. You grow bigger. Fluid, liquids bond everything together. Or do they split it? Walking gets more and more difficult. In front of you, you see a sign and you read, become one with the industry. as to survive, we shall consume fresh, crunchy, sweet. Now you know where you are. Maybe in a stomach, maybe in the process of just becoming shit.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Like, I just love how these have come out. These are like really, I feel very validated as a person that these have worked for people, because I'm never sure. How did you find the process?
Really good. It was really made it so much more enjoyable to write, and like really took the pressure off, like to like get the ideas flowing. Like I think a few people have said, but sometimes it can be like so high pressure when you're trying to make something creative, and
yeah,
it just felt like it made it happen so much more naturally, and thought of things that I would never have thought of, but were in my brain. So
that's really good. Yeah, I mean, part of this like stuff comes from the fact that I've got like a really bad working memory due to like various brain things, and I can't really hold too much stuff in my mind. So the use of the diagram is like to kind of farm out that job to something else, which is the bit of paper, but also I think it's just in general like a really useful thing. So it stops you doing all the kind of filtering of like, that's a good idea, so I will remember it. And some of those other things are also good ideas, but they're not as easily labeled. They're not as a thing that you could explain to someone else as quickly, and like the diagram allows you to kind of lump it down and then refer to it later, and with avoiding that horrible thing of, you know, the blank page. So yeah, that's really cool. Okay, that's cool. Anyone else want to share? No obligation.
I just landed 2 hours ago, so I'm still a little bit late, but I managed to write a short excerpt based on what I could gather, and the prompt. I guess I could share just you wake up and I'm still here. It's more humid than normal, and I smell a lot of different things. Am I hallucinating? You're not supposed to be here. You have to get up. My eyes glisten a little and the slime grazes my eyeball. I'm awake. Where do I go? She tells me to write it down. All I have are my nails and a limestone wall. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you. Oh, well done for like just getting off your travel and like doing that in like no time at all. That's really great. So what time did you arrive? Like how far in did you were you here for the diagram bit, or you had to just drop straight into writing the story?
I dropped in, yeah, kind of mid you giving a meditative session on the writing. So I just got my pen and I was like, okay, I'll try to follow the best I can. Yeah, that's kind of where I dropped in.
Well, thank you so much, though. That's really great. Yeah, hopefully because we're recording the video as well, you can like the diagram bit might be useful as well, because it's kind of like the two parts. Okay. I think if we had everyone, I think maybe we have. But okay, last call for last like thoughts on the process, or like anything else you have to get off your chest. No, that's fine with me. Okay, well, thank you so much, everyone. You've been like a really wonderful umabreakdown.com, baby, is my contact. Everything is there. umabreakdown.com. Like and subscribe. But yeah, thank you so much for like being like a wonderful group to work with. I was so excited about this program, and yeah, like to work with people who are working in these like completely different areas, but around the idea of horror. So yeah, thank you for being great and tolerating my weirdness. And yeah, I hope the rest of your program goes really well. I hope I can kind of sit in on some of the things in the future.
Uma,
Right,
thank
cheers,
you so much. It's been amazing. Thank you.